in the studio. Good to see you, my friend.
You too.
We missed you last week. You were up in the nation's capital on, I'm sure, a business-related trip.
I was. It was a good jaunt. I try not to frequent that place too often, but when I do, I make it count.
Could you live there?
No.
Really?
Absolutely not.
I think if I had the money to live right, I could live there.
Yeah, but that's an oxymoron. You wouldn't be able to live right living in
Really?
Washington, D.C. No.
So what do first? We're going to get to the big political stories of the day in a second, but I'm just curious. Like a freshman congressman that's making what, like $112,000 a year. They got to travel. How do they live in D.C.?
On a couch, or if they're personally wealthy, they get a townhouse. Sometimes they rent. Sometimes they split rental a townhouse.
Okay.
It kind of runs the gamut.
So it's not a very lush life.
None of them are ideal situations.
Yeah, interesting. All right, fascinating. So you would, I don't know. I've only been there a couple of times, but I've always had a great time there. And actually, you know what? What was the clincher for me? So the Braves are playing the Nationals. And did you watch the game on TV?
Did. I did.
And there's like 6 people in the stands.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, if I lived in D.C., I could
get great tickets. The one silver lining on being a Braves fan living in D.C.
Absolutely. All right. By the way, Didier Fuentes called up. Apparently going to start.
I love it.
Yeah, very excited. All right, let's get to the redistricting battle. So we've been dealing with redistricting. We had Texas and California. End of the day, it's going to turn out to be a wash. Virginia voted to redistrict, which gives the Democrats a number of seats. But after all these redistricting battles, it's kind of like we're going to have the same balance in the House of Representatives.
I think that's the best case scenario for Republicans right now, Mark, is that it's a wash. I think, again, you alluded to this started with Republicans wanting to do this mid-cycle, mid-session redistricting. They started with Texas. California then responded, right? So those are two of the biggest red and blue states. But then you've had follow-ups from states like Virginia, which last night voted to redistrict, and that's going to give them, I believe, a net 4 or 5 seat advantage, going from a 6-5 split to a 10-1 split,
which is pretty crazy. I mean, that's a purple state.
It is a purple state, and you saw it with the results. I think it was 51.5% voted in favor of the redistricting, and then 48.5% voted against it. Very, very split, but you're going to go to this hyper-partisan gerrymandered state. And I think the ripple effects right now, if that goes into law, it's going to go through the court process. It will be challenged. But if that gets held up, you're talking about an almost certainty for Democrats to retake the House in the midterms. I think the only outlier that's still out there is potentially Florida. For Republicans, but there's some questions about how much juice they can actually squeeze out of that a new map. So really, it's been a tit for tat, but it may end up being a boomerang for Republicans.
From day one, I'm like, it doesn't sit right with me to do the mid-census redistricting. That has not been the norm, and I was opposed to every state doing it. And at the end of the day, I mean, so you're saying the Republicans could lose it, but it's just like, is this the new normal now? Are we going to see this every 2 years where, states are like, oh, we're going to do the gerrymandering again, even though it hasn't been what the tradition has been?
I hope not. I hope that's not the norm. I mean, we've got enough problems in this country to solve that I think we need to get to solving those in short order, and not having to worry about millions of dollars being spent, every cycle, on deciding who's going to vote where and what the maps look like. I think we need to get back to solving the issues at hand. But look, it's a fight that both sides are having right now. We'll see. I guess the one silver lining may be that if they do this one time, it's like, okay, maybe we can sit with these maps until the actual census redistricting comes every 10 years. You
mentioned Florida. I pulled this. We're going to get to Georgia stuff in a second, I promise. I know you're champing at the bit to get to Georgia. I pulled this from Mark Caputo. Mark Caputo from
Good
Axios.
Friend of mine.
Oh, is he? All right, so you might even be aware of this.
They had a lunch on April 12th, the Sunday before.
Let me preface this. He's talking about Governor Ron DeSantis maybe wanting a position in the Trump administration.
Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis did. And the discussion of Ron DeSantis' future was on the menu. DeSantis is termed out in January. He served 2 terms, or will have served 2 full terms as Florida governor. And in the words of one, he's looking for a job. DeSantis and Trump have had sort of an on-again, off-again, on-again relationship. DeSantis was sort of an understudy of his. Trump helped endorse him or endorsed him and helped make him governor in 2018. Then they ran against each other.
All right, so I'm not going to play the full clip there, but I'm old enough to remember Ron DeSanctimonious, and what's the likelihood? I mean, his term's ending. He's obviously a national notable name, a mover and shaker. Could you see Ron DeSantis in the Trump administration, and maybe what role he might fill?
Yeah, I think there's a real likelihood. I think you've seen now we've had 3 U.S. cabinet secretaries either be fired or leave. And so there are going to be some openings potentially. The 3 potential landing spots that Mark Caputo pointed out are potentially Attorney General. We know that we have an acting Attorney General with Pam Bondi gone. Secretary of Defense, there's been some question marks around Pete Hegseth's leadership there, still to be seen. I don't know that he's wavered with his support from the president. And then potentially there could be a looming Supreme Court vacancy, which would be really interesting.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that may not be imminent, but it may be something that after DeSantis's term, Trump could look at.
Alito?
I believe that is correct. I believe
with
that's
health
correct.
Stuff and
yeah. So that could be really an interesting spot. Obviously, Ron DeSantis has a very close relationship with Clarence Thomas.
Yeah.
That'll be an interesting sort of. But yeah, I think if you're Ron DeSantis, you've got to find a landing spot.
You have to.
I don't think running for president again is in the cards for him, given the deck that's stacked against him and
Rubio,
how poorly
Vance.
that fared last time. So
DeSanctimonious.
That's right.
I love how quickly politicians bury the hatchet. Like, you go back to the 2015 primaries and you hear what Marco Rubio had to say about President Trump and Ted Cruz and J.D. Vance. And now it's like.
And Ron DeSantis' relationship is a little similar to his relationship with Brian Kemp here in Georgia. Donald Trump having an on-again, off-again relationship with Brian Kemp.
But that doesn't happen in real life. If Deborah calls me some of the names that the president's
it's over.
Yeah,
right?
we're not friends anymore, but that's politics. Speaking of name calling, Georgia governor's race, what do we know on the Republican side, the Democrat side right now?
Yeah, I mean, for your listeners, if they weren't aware, early voting starts on Monday. People are going to start voting for these races on Monday. So, if you're out there, make a plan to vote. Election day and the primary is obviously May 19th. On the Republican side, we've talked about it a number of times, Mark. This is a 2-person race for all extents and purposes. This is, Rick Jackson and Burt Jones. They have been dueling it out on the airwaves. I still think that Rick Jackson is probably in the pole position at this point. I think it's going to go to a runoff. We've got a debate between all of these candidates coming up on both the Republican and the Democrat side, the GPP debate. I think that'll be very, very interesting to watch. And then on the Democrat side, look, I think Keisha Lance Bottoms, by all accounts, is quickly running away with this race.
Thing, right?
She is. And we've talked about it on the show, Mark. What do these other candidates in this race do? Do they boost their own image or do they go after her? Right now, they're doing neither of them.
Yeah, absolutely nothing.
And they're giving her a glideway to this nomination. If they're not careful, she's in real danger of getting 50% for them, in real danger for them. And she could be ostensibly crowned the nominee very, very early.
Yeah, I keep waiting for Thurman, Estevez, whomever to fire something up. And I guess that I don't know what's going on behind closed doors there. But I have noticed, back to the Republican side, a shift in, I don't know about the radio ads, but the TV ads. I'm seeing the softer side of Mr. Jackson now. And we talked about this, telling the story. I grew up poor. There was a commercial I saw. He's like, some charitable person when I was a kid gave me $100 so I can get, like, it's
that.
Yeah, we're seeing that now instead of, that other guy's a crook.
Yeah,
ads.
Maybe they've been tuning in the Mark Arum show because I've been talking about this. Yeah, I think you're seeing that pivot. I fully expect that's what they're going to close with over the next 3 weeks, is getting back to that, telling that positive story about Rick Jackson's background.
Those play so much better.
I do. I agree. I think they're resonating with voters. You're seeing Burt Jones go up with a couple positive pieces, not as much. It'll be interesting to see how he closes as well, too, knowing that race is probably going to run off. And then I think the looming questions are going to be, again, not just this debate. How does the president interact in a runoff? What does he say or do relative to Rick Jackson? I think those are all interesting storylines.
Apparently, I've heard through sources that President Trump endorsed a certain like every spot. It's like we hear the president. That's big. That's we're gonna have a runoff.
We are,
Yeah.
and we know that the power of the president's endorsement in a Republican primary is huge. It's tantamount. It's gold, but it only gets you 25 or 30%. To get that 40, 50%, you've got to tell your story. You've got to tell your bio. You've got to tell people what you believe, what you've done, and what you want to do for them. Because as we've talked about on the show, there are lots of issues that Georgians are facing right now in terms of affordability, cost of living, and the candidate with the best solutions and the best message to those issues is going to win.
Finally, on Monday, Deborah brought me the story, the Epstein Amendment from the Georgia legislature. And I said, Deborah, remind me to ask Stephen, this wasn't on my radar. What exactly, I don't know if it's officially called the Epstein Amendment or what does it entail?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've obviously seen what's going on in Washington, D.C., not just around Jeffrey Epstein, but again, all of these Swalwell, Gonzalez, all of these congressmen that have been embroiled in these sexual and ethics scandals. There was a bill, an amendment in the General Assembly that was passed this last session that basically would require any settlement for a sexual harassment or harassment claim from a legislator or involving a legislator to be unsealed and to be open to public record. And that's an interesting dynamic. I think you're going to see a lot. It's the bill is effective upon the governor's signature. So as soon as he signs it, you will be able to request per open records any of those documents should they exist. Obviously, the names will be redacted. That was one of the provisions of the bill. It's going to be really interesting to see if there's any documents there. I think there will be some sleuthing media outlets and investigative journalists that
I just saw Jonathan O'Brien and Greg Bluestein running past the station window.
That's right.
Dentons.com for all things Stephen Lawson. Fantastic stuff as always, my friend.
Always a pleasure.
Hey.